Okay, we'll continue on here. Here we have the bright yellow. This is going to help us layer in that golden hazel amber color. So I'm using medium pressure here. Referring to the reference photo, make sure I'm really filling in the right places where there's that everywhere from a sage green color all the way into the brown amber colors. Sort of that golden brown with hints of yellow underneath. So here we are with this brighter blue, more of a sky blue. Now I took a little bit of artist liberty here and decided to go a little bolder with the blue. Really play that up. So what I'm doing is for me, it was easier to stick to the directions of the eyelash shadows in many places and then work to fill in the spots that need them. I appreciate you bearing with me here. I'm doing this voiceover while my son's playing in the basement. So he's a pretty quiet kid other than when he is not, and he is very loud, and we're just going with it. Real life. There's fewer things more fun, though, than hearing your kids enjoying themselves, especially when they're teenagers. So I'm coming in here and just adding a little bit more depth of color to, as we fill in the color, we can start to see where there needs to be even more darkness. And if you remember when we did the pencil sketch, I called it the sun ray pencil strokes, where we have the pupil and then we work our way out sort of like a sun expanding outward. I'm going back in and just darkening those shadows cast by the eyelashes. This all feels very bold right now, but once we add in the eyelids and the eyelashes and things like that, it really balances out this color so that it won't stand out quite as much. Just a proper amount. So in this reference photo, if you look, you can see that there's a little bit of a buffer zone here where I'm kind of working right now, where it's a shadow. It's hard to tell what should be there. So we kind of work within that. We'll sort of fill most of it in when we do the eyelashes. But it's not quite as straightforward as drawing some eyes will be. So we're just patiently continuing to darken in. Also making sure we properly shadow the eyeball so it does appear round, where it gets a little darker towards the edges. When you look at the reference photo, the brightest part of the eyeball is the inner part next to the iris. So we can use that as a clue as we go through and darken the other areas a bit. So here there's no perfect way to do this. You can use straight strokes or circular, whichever you prefer. If your paper is loose, you could turn the paper even. And if that makes it a little easier. Sometimes it's easier to naturally work with the circle our hand makes as we're doing brush strokes or pencil strokes. So here I'm just filling in a little bit more color even. Really building up the depth. So I'm making sure to note where the highlight is there and then filling in more shadowing. And you can pause this at any point if you're following along and catch up. You can also just watch and take in the tips to use at a future date. So here I'm using a burnishing technique where I'm taking the white and I'm using very, not hard enough to rip the paper, but pretty hard pressure. And I'm using that to sort of blur the colors together a little bit, show the highlights, going in between these lash shadows. If you were to zoom in here and see what I was doing, it's using the white to almost smear the colors together a little bit. So it really helps just blur them a little bit into one another. It hides any of the paper that's showing through. And it also makes sure none of the paper is exposed when we go through with either rubbing alcohol or mineral spirits. I don't know why, but this terracotta color is one of my favorite ones to work with. It always just feels like such a special color to me when I'm drawing. I'm not sure why. So working to add a little bit of that amber brown around the pupil. Now we're going to come in and darken even further. Really expand that pupil and the blurriness around it. As you can see above the pupil now, almost all of that little area has been darkened under where the lashes will come in. Having your pencil as sharp as possible always will make this part easier. You'll notice I constantly am twisting that pencil around in my hand to get the next sharpest angle on it. So I'm doing those sun ray strokes in the iris. If you go back to the very first lesson in this series, I show you a close-up of the iris and the pupil, and you can really see how they come together and all the fibers there that make up how the pupil dilates and expands, and all of the really fascinating overlapping layers that then we get to come in and draw when we're doing eyes. So this process is somewhat tedious, but it's really what all of drawing is. It requires some patience, and it also helps build patience if you're an impatient person. Sometimes having the right goal helps us build our ability to focus. So constantly just checking back in. Here's the lemon buttery yellow color. Checking back in with the reference photo. Looking at the drawing. seeing what colors I'm missing, how I can come in and layer another color into the mix. I'm doing very light pressure here. Coming back in and highlighting all of the white areas again, any white highlights I missed before. Really making sure they're standing out from the areas next to them. You only want to come in and burnish with that white colored pencil when you're sure that you're done building up the color in that area. It's not always easy to add a lot of color on top of the white. Here I'm able to add some light layering, but it's always a little risky once you apply all the pressure with the white pencil. So you just want to be aware, if anything, make that your last step if you're unsure. And I definitely encourage you, if you're curious about it, find another piece of paper, scribble around some colors, practice just a small area of similar to what you're wanting to achieve on your drawing, and experiment how it looks when you burnish with the white. Experiment how it looks on skin tones if you burnish with the beige color or the off-white color. Sometimes it's just playing and practicing, doing portraits like this with a sense of curiosity and playfulness, and just knowing that it's a learning experience. Let me know in the comments, do you like this when you can see the reference photo side by side with what I'm drawing? I figured, especially if you're potentially going to spend an hour or two with me over this entire advanced color pencil eye drawing series, then it would be really helpful to have the same reference to look at to see why I'm choosing which colors. Art is always fascinating to me, that if you start looking at paintings and drawings, so many colors can be used to imply white. Very rarely is anything pure, bright white. So it's fun when we can use color to shade and still imply that something is white. So I know I've said this before in other videos, but doing portrait artwork, you really have to decide how much time you have to work on something, or how much detail you want to have in something, and which is the goal that is more important to you. Because somebody might have 20 minutes to work on this eye, and therefore they would just have to choose the deepest or exact color they could and do section by section without building up color. Or someone might have 5 hours that they're willing to spend on this. And they have time to really go in and get every detail. Neither is right or wrong. It's just what you can do. So here I have my mineral spirits and a paintbrush. And I should have probably wiped a little more of that off of my brush. A little too much. So I'm doing the lightest parts first and brushing up into the shadows so I don't drag that into the other white part. And what this is going to do is it's going to break down those binders in the colored pencils. And once those are dissolved and broken down, you're left with just more of the true color. And it helps, similar to what we did with the burnishing before with the white colored pencil. It just offers almost like a blurry filter in the best way to where all of the teeth of the paper are hidden. It fills in, just making your work look seamless. And I feel like it really brightens the colors. Sometimes what I'll find, like in this pupil here, is once we let the mineral spirits or rubbing alcohol dry, you need to wait a little bit, and then sometimes the shimmer will be gone and I'll come back in with another layer. And one more note, when you're doing so that's all of the black colored pencil that got off on my paintbrush. So you want to make sure to not work and get black on your brush and then drag it into another part of the eye. So now that I've cleaned it, I can come back in again. Otherwise, you're going to have a grayish black smeary mess. You can see already some of the colors drag around, so you just have to be very strategic, and I can kind of pull them back up and work with them a little bit where I need to. It always helps maybe to have a tissue or something on hand if you need to dab any extra off or pull the color off your brush. You also right here could be using a cotton swab or several. I am working with mineral spirits. I do prefer that. But rubbing alcohol is also much more affordable and accessible. So I completely understand, and it has less of an odor to it. If you do get mineral spirits, see if you can find the smallest container available and odorless to work with. And then I just keep refilling this little glass bottle that I have with it, so it's something that I can keep by my desk easily. And I have a larger tin can out in my workshop that I just refill the bottle with. So one of the little bit of a hack that you can do is, so with mineral spirits, you're not able to do this with rubbing alcohol because your paper might rip. But with mineral spirits, if that mineral spirit is still wet, you can come in with your colored pencil and add a little more color, and the mineral spirit on the paper actually helps break down the colored pencil on contact. So it gives you this really rich, beautiful, thick color, even brighter than you're able to get normally. So here's color number 44 to play up some of those amber tones within the eye. So I'm coming in and just re-accenting some of these beautiful, rich colors that this woman has in her eyes. She's gorgeous multicolor eyes, which are so rare to see, but really fun to draw. So we're just really putting the finishing touches here on this eye, filling in any other areas to just really bring out that beautiful saturation. The next lesson that I'll be doing is going to show me doing the upper eyelid part of it and the eyelashes. So you'll really get to see how this all comes together. I loved the way the photographer took this photo with those lashes reflecting like that on the eye. Which is why this is an advanced lesson, because you can find many eye photo references that are much more straightforward. But when you find something unique like this, it sure is fun to draw. I'm just working to blur that line between where the pupil is and the colored iris. Carry that color throughout a little bit. So this is more of a seafoam color, which is so rarely used in portraits, and it's how fun to get to use it. Kind of a minty greenish color. So there we have it. The finished iris, pupil, and eyeball. I appreciate your patience as I had to split this over 2 videos. I hope you'll join me next week as we do the eyelid and the eyelashes. It's going to be so much fun, and it'll really help pull it all together. So thanks so much for being here. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Make sure you're subscribed. We have weeks and weeks more videos coming. Lessons of pencil and colored pencils, both. Have a wonderful day. Bye.